When any company goes for mergers and acquisition, they don't go in a whim. They think about it. It's not like आज weekend है तो चलो आज किसी को acquire कर लेते हैं. There is a reason for such mergers and acquisition. Probably a very good reason. For example, increasing the profitability, decreasing the competition, etc. and etc. So what is the purpose of due diligence? Like what is due diligence and what is the purpose of it in mergers and acquisition? Here, due diligence is a process to evaluate the company, the target company, its assets, its liability, everything, to determine if we should go for mergers and acquisition at first place, or even if we go for mergers and acquisition, what could be the valuation of it. Say after due diligence you realize that the company sucks, so either you decrease the valuation of that company or you get the hell out of that transaction at first place. So you would ask, Rohit, what is involved in this due diligence process? First and foremost step is to look into firm's financial condition. You would not want your client to acquire a company which is not profitable or bankrupt, right? You also look into the perspective of customer satisfaction for the targeted company. Say that the company is not very famous for customer satisfaction, so merging or acquiring that company could have adverse consequence to the acquired company. We also look into organizational structure, managerial structure. You look into firm's production process, technology, etc. For example, if the targeted company is as enigmatic as what WhatsApp was when it came into existence, so there could be a situation where it could get acquired the way Facebook acquired WhatsApp. And you'll also look into the legal perspective, which is very important, and we'll come to that. So much of evaluation, right? But what if you mess up with the evaluation, like the due diligence process? So let's take an example here, Quaker Oats and Snapples. During 90s, Quaker Oats used to sell sports drink, the Gatorade, and it was very profitable. The company thought that it is doing well in sports drink, so let's sell fruit-based drink. And then it decided to acquire Snapples. During 90s, it acquired Snapples for $1.7 billion. And after a few years, it had to sell it for a meager amount of $300 million. Had they properly done the due diligence process, they would have realized that Snapples used to had a very different base from where they used to get the revenue, and any kind of external interference from the Quaker Oats would be disastrous. Enough of bad stuff, let's talk something good. Have you ever heard of Mac OS X? You might know that Steve Jobs was fired from Apple. After leaving Apple, he opened his own company Next, which focused on operating system, software, etc. Apple realized that it lacked operating system upgradation and later on decided to acquire Next. By acquiring Next, they got two things. First, a very good OS, Mac OS X, and a visionary leader. Enough of stories, let's talk about checklist. What is the checklist during due diligence? So here is the list. First, asset appraisal. Appraisal, assessing something. Assessment. Companies have sellable assets like machinery, real property, inventory, etc. They are appraised mandatorily. Why? Once you assess them, you realize the price, you realize the value of such asset. And when lender realize the value of assets, they know how much money they are going to give for that very security. In our checklist, the second number is taken by cultural due diligence. Here, you assess the corporate culture. So for example, you are the acquirer and in your companies, there are employees. In your company, the employees get 6 days of work, no holidays except Sunday. And you want to acquire a targeted company. In the targeted company, nobody goes to office. There is work from home. They work for 3 days a week. There is 4 days of holidays including Sundays. Now imagine what would happen if these two companies merge or if the acquirer acquired this company. What would be the reaction of the people working in this company would be? Such merger would lead to... You got it right. Then we have accounting due diligence. As I told before only that the financial records are assessed in order to see if it is financially worth it to go for mergers and acquisition at first place. Now coming to IP due diligence. When you are acquiring a company, you get the good stuff. And when you get the good stuff, you also get the bad stuff. And the worst possible stuff could be to get into legal complications. Here what you do in IP due diligence is to see who owns the brand, who has the IP right. For example, there is Hospital A and there is Hospital B. You are the lawyer of Hospital A. You do the due diligence before Hospital A would want to acquire Hospital B. You see that the brand name of Hospital B is not owned by the hospital itself. Rather, it has been owned by a very senior doctor from that hospital. You know why? Because it could have costed less to get it registered in the name of a certain individual rather than getting it registered for the whole hospital. And as a result of it, you realize if your client, the Hospital A, acquires the Hospital B, later on the senior doctor could leave the hospital, create its own hospital and name it with that IP name. That could create issues. And that's why IP due diligence is very important. If we see legal due diligence, it covered contractual documentation, litigation, ownership, movable, fixed, immovable, intangible, IP rights, etc. And if we talk about the legal implication of mergers and acquisition in Indian perspective, we see that in most of the cases, the whole M&A transaction is structured in such a manner in order to evade taxes and regulatory issues. What would happen if an Indian company merge or acquire a foreign company? In such situation, not only their tax laws would be required, but also our political relationship would affect it. We will see if there exists any free trade agreement or double taxation avoidance agreement between these countries. So if I may sum up, there are predominantly 3 due diligences which are very important: tax, legal and financial due diligence. And this covers the basics of due diligence in mergers and acquisition. And if by any chance this video gave any value to you, hit the like button. And if you would want to see more such content in future, hit the subscribe button. Thank you.